Now, on the Georgia vote, big moves in Washington lead to ripple effects in Georgia, including immigration arrests in metro Atlanta.
Democrats out of power, but not out of rebuttals. We sit down with Congressman Hank Johnson to discuss the future of federal funding in Georgia, as well as his opposition to the Laken Riley Act.
And our Voice of the Voter takes us to a historic Atlanta church, which promises to welcome all worshipers, regardless of where you come from or where you're going. It's all right now on the Georgia Vote.
From the 11 Alive studios, this is the Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Hey, welcome into the Georgia Vote. So the first month of 2025 is officially in the books with no shortage of major political news here in Georgia.
No, absolutely not. So let's bring you up to speed on the headlines from a very busy week. Former Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler appears to be closer to officially joining the Trump administration. She's the nominee to head the Small Business Administration. At a Senate committee hearing this week, she promised she would cut red tape and crack down on fraud.
And the 2026 election is still 21 months away, but Republican Congressman Andrew Clyde, he has a new primary challenger. That's Gainesville Mayor Sam Kuvian. He says that he's going to run for that seat. Clyde represents Georgia's 9th congressional district, which includes parts of Gwinnett and Hall counties.
Georgia needs tort reform, and they need it now.
And this week, Governor Brian Kemp announced what he calls his tort reform package. He says it's a way to control lawsuits that resulted in big jury payouts. Well, Democrats argued Georgia's economic prosperity indicates there is no real problem. And now there's a very big story that we have been following this week. Federal law enforcement agencies made a series of arrests across metro Atlanta and other Georgia cities as part of a nationwide immigration enforcement.
And local agencies joined in, including the Drug Enforcement Administration in Atlanta and the Homeland Security Investigations Field Office here. One arrest in Lilburn involved a man from Honduras living with his wife and children. His brother told 11 Alive News that agents arrived at the family's home, checked his GPS monitor, and arrested him. The enforcement drawing condemnation from some Democratic lawmakers like State Representative Gabriel Sanchez.
I believe that we shouldn't collaborate with ICE because what they're doing isn't right, it's unnecessary, and it's cruel.
But many Republicans, like Kristi Noem, the new Secretary of Homeland Security, said the immigration crackdown was a follow-through on promises made during the presidential campaign. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, also known as ICE, says it made more than 3,000 arrests nationwide this week.
We had an election in November that clearly said the American people don't want these criminals and dangerous individuals on our streets anymore.
And as ICE arrests continue in metro Atlanta, one man who is an immigrant himself is on the front lines. More this morning from 11 Alive's Angelina Salcido.
While agents searched neighborhoods,
Good morning, officer.
he's close behind.
When I went to this place immediately, I realized the immigration officer was taking one person in custody.
Mario Guevara dropped everything to serve his community.
I started to report this is an immigration issue happening in Georgia.
It isn't his first time covering ICE arrests.
The first raid I covered was in the Obama administration.
Stay back, stay back.
The agents and officers then weren't welcoming.
Officer, let me go. During the Obama administration, they used the flashlight to try to avoid recording my camera.
Data from the Department of Homeland Security shows the peak of removals from the Obama administration in 2013 stood at approximately 432,000. The peak for the Trump administration in 2019 was 347,000. Most recently, the Biden administration removed 329,000 undocumented immigrants in 2024.
As an immigrant, I believe it's the best topic to talk because the people had to know exactly what's going on.
Our thanks to Angelina Salcido for that report. Well, the Laken Riley Act is now a federal law. It's named for nursing student Laken Riley, who was killed on UGA's campus last February. The law requires the Department of Homeland Security to detain undocumented immigrants arrested for crimes from shoplifting to violent offenses. Well, moments before the president signed it, Riley's mother explained what it means to her.
Our family will forever be grateful for the prayers of the people across our nation and for helping to get this legislation into law. There's no amount of change that will ever bring back our precious Laken. Our hope moving forward is that her life saves lives.
We do know that the majority of lawmakers who pushed the Laken Riley Act forward are Republicans, but dozens of Democrats joined them, including both of Georgia's senators, Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock, along with Georgia Representative Lucy McBath. Multiple Georgia lawmakers, they attended that bill signing, including Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and Georgia House Speaker John Burns.
And now to a story that left many across Georgia and the country scrambling to make sense of. We're talking about the memo from President Donald Trump's budget office, which directed federal agencies to freeze spending on loans and grants. The office pulled back that memo days later, but the administration says reviews of this spending continue. The whiplash confused the executive director of GEARS, an early education nonprofit.
And in an environment where it's impossible to get information, that causes anxiety, that causes potential shutdowns, that causes us to not be able to serve the children that we're supposed to be serving.
The University System of Georgia sent a statement to 11 Alive News reassuring students, families, and employees that Pell Grants are not impacted by any pause in funding.
And this week, we sat down with Congressman Hank Johnson, who represents Georgia's 4th Congressional District. And we talked about the funding freeze back and forth. Johnson also says the Trump administration is pulling the country backwards, but admits Democrats are on the defensive. Well, in our one-on-one interview, we start with the budget office memo being rescinded.
Well, Trump is calling it a rescission, but when you actually read the so-called rescission, it is not a rescission. And so the cuts, the theft of taxpayer money continues. So you can't get, you got to look at what they do and not what they say, even in terms of their actions as opposed to what they write.
What was discussed? What can Americans see come out of this from House Democrats?
Well, of course, Democrats are not in control of the House of Representatives. Republicans have that responsibility. They have the majority. Mm-hmm. And so we can defend, but we can't prosecute. They control the floor. They put measures on the floor for House consideration and a vote. So what the executive branch has done the Trump has decided that I don't like what Congress has passed. I don't like the law. I don't want spending for child care for families. I don't want to fund breakfast and lunch meals for children. I don't want to fund Meals on Wheels for seniors. I don't want to fund COPS grants for local fire departments, local police departments. So all of these things that the freeze applies to are things that President Trump has decided that he doesn't want on his agenda. His problem is that Congress, under Article 1 of the Constitution, is the entity that sets the policy. He merely implements that policy, and so he's violating the Constitution. It's been challenged in court. That was one of the things that we talked about today, is that court challenge. And the other thing we talked about is the need for people to be informed about what is actually happening, how this administration is trying to deconstruct our democracy so that they can steal taxpayer money to fund their massive tax giveaway to Trump and his billionaire buddies.
On the topic of immigration, specifically the Laken Riley Act that was just signed into law, we know that 46 of your colleagues in the House did vote in favor of that. One of your colleagues, Lucy McBath, here in Florida, voting in favor for that.
In Georgia.
Or excuse me, in Georgia, correct. Mm-hmm. You voted no on that. What did Lucy McBath and then your colleagues over in the Senate, Senator Warnock, Senator Ossoff, what did they get wrong? Because they all voted yes for this.
Well, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 27 years before coming to Congress. And I was also a magistrate court judge during that time for 12 years. And so I know criminal law. I know what probable cause is. I know what the lack of probable cause is. And so the Laken Riley Act provides for the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, it requires them to take into custody and detain an immigrant who is simply accused of shoplifting, or who might admit that I committed an act of family violence in hitting my male spouse back who hit me. Self-defense, but family violence, those kinds of catch-all provisions that require the Department of Homeland Security to actually pick up and detain a person. If a sheriff's deputy says that, okay, this guy told me, he confessed that he did this, that, or the other in terms of he stole a peanut butter and jelly sandwich from the corner store. We're going to detain him and deport him without any probable cause, without any adjudication of guilt. And I think that that is wrong. And so what it is a...
But why do you think the other Democrats thought that this was the right way?
Well, they may see it a little differently. My view is my view. It was shared by most Democrats and no Republican. But I give folks credit for having their own views on things. This is my view. This is why I voted against it. And others have to do what they have to do.
And this is just part of our conversation. The congressman and I spoke for more than half an hour, and you can see that extended interview streaming on 11 Live Plus right now. It's free to download on your Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV device.
Our Politics Roundtable is next, and later we find our voice of the voter at a Metro Atlanta church where art and creativity go hand in hand with worship. Well, welcome back. It is time now for our Politics Roundtable, and today we have Republican strategist Jen Ryan. She is the founder and CEO of Final Draft Communications and previously served as Vice Chancellor of Communications for the University System of Georgia and Deputy Chief of Staff of Communications for Governor Nathan Deal. Also joining us this morning, Democratic strategist Fred Hicks, the founder and president of the Hicks Evaluation Group, who has worked with hundreds of political campaigns over nearly 20 years. He is also an adjunct professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. Perhaps most importantly, you are both veterans of the Georgia vote. It's so good to have you back at the start of this new year and the end of what has been a really, really busy news month. We've got a lot to unpack, to say the least, right? There's a lot happening. Let's start here. Let's start at home. We're a couple weeks into the state legislative session now, and this is when the big topic lines start to emerge. Jen, what are going to be the big stories under the Gold Dome this year?
Well, we had budget week, and I thought that the governor's budget priorities were really strong. And then, the next week he comes out with tort reform. And that press conference was one of the most impressive displays of support that I have ever seen. The diversity of the folks in the background, from grocery store owners to bus drivers and operators to hospital CEOs. This is a legacy issue. It is one that he has worked on for years now, and this is going to dominate the legislative session.
It's also a Republican priority, of course. It's spearheaded by Republican Governor Brian Kemp. Republicans control the state legislature, but there are lots of Democrats there, too. Fred, what is the Democrats' position on this issue?
Well, first, Zach, there's not uniformity within the Republican caucus on this issue. Senator Blake Tillery and a couple of others have indicated that they are not necessarily in alignment with the governor on this. So it'll be interesting to see if the caucus can align around this. And I think there are a few issues around tort reform, and Jen and I talked about this before. That that right now there's the whole issue is how do you lower insurance premiums? Right. I think the pro side would say, or the anti-tort reform side would say that the only way you can really lower costs is by having more competition. And the insurance commissioner won't release the list of insurance companies that he says have left the state. And I think there are a number of other issues. So it can really evolve or devolve quickly into the corporations versus the everyday people. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. .1, score one to the governor for his press conference the other day, as Jen mentioned. But we'll see what the trial lawyers and others say about that. But as far as Democrats are concerned, again, this is not, we don't see this as a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue of how do people who are injured, wrongfully injured, how do they receive justice? And it goes to a jury makes a decision. It's not a judge or a Democrat or Republican who does that. And so do you take away a person's constitutional right to a trial, to a jury trial? And how do you make sure that, how do you balance justice versus profits? And I think if Democrats and anti-tort reform groups frame it like that, then they have a shot. But it's going to be interesting to see.
But I will point out that Minority Leader Hewley said that she was open to looking at the components of the legislation and that there might be some pieces that can work on together. So, you know, it cuts across party lines, I think, and at least some components do.
For sure.
I want to ask you guys both about something that's going to start at the federal government and then trickle down to the state, and that is this federal funding, the freeze, the not freeze, whatever it is. There's confusion from both sides of the aisle. The directive that was given from the Trump administration that was pulled back, or as we heard the Congressman Johnson say, not actually pulled back. From both of you guys, Jen, let's start with you.
Okay.
I mean, where do we go from here? Where do lawmakers go from here?
So personally, I think that this is a tempest in a teapot. The administration, maybe the rollout and the implementation was not as tight or as thought out as it could be. But I think that the administration and the voters that put Donald Trump in office are expecting a review of how your tax dollars are spent.
But do you think that there's worry that those who voted for Trump could get caught in kind of, I don't want to say the crossfire, but some of those programs that they depend on? Is that why you think they pulled back?
Well, we're talking about less than 10% of the budget. This was grants. There was not entitlement spending. The communication around it should have been clear. Communications professional, and that was unfortunate. But the crux of the issue, people want to see their tax dollars used wisely, and so having a systematic review and making sure the money is spent on the agency's core missions. If the Democrats want to fight about that, that's a fight that I think that we should have.
Well, see, again, like we just talked about with tort reform, this is not a Democratic or Republican issue. You had a number of Republican governors and Republican senators pleading with the White House this week for clarity around this. And as a matter of fact, you had the Army put a freeze on paying all of their bills because they were not sure about what to do. And I don't think anyone would say the military-industrial complex is Democratic leaning. And so this is a matter, not just, I think, of communications, but this is a matter of, Jen, you said it's a tempest in a teapot. I think it's a tempest before a major thunderstorm. And this is foreboding a lot of chaos that I think we're going to see this year. If you're going to, you can review spending without freezing spending, without causing people who are receiving Medicaid benefits and SNAP benefits, or regular employees who are not receiving some type of assistance, not knowing and having clarity about their job status. You can do that without impacting the government.
And on that point, guys, we're going to take a pause right now. We're going to take a break, and we'll continue the conversation after this. Hey, welcome back to the round table. Jen Ryan, Fred Hicks joining us. Jen, just a quick response to this federal funding fiasco that's going on right now.
I wouldn't call it a fiasco, and it did not affect entitlement spending. It was less than 10% of the budget for government grants that had not gone out the door. So again, tempest in a teapot. We'll move on.
Tempest in a teapot, not a fiasco.
We're going to have so much more to talk about on this, and it's a good thing because we're going to have you both back. I know it. But we have 90 seconds left here, 20 seconds each for each of you. We're talking about the Trump administration's first couple weeks as it's getting off the ground, version 2.0 here. How does this new administration start to contextualize the decisions many Georgians are making to enter or not enter races for an open governor's seat and a contested Senate seat in 2026? Fred, first to you.
So I think this administration will be almost entirely responsible for who is successful next year. He's already given birth, so to speak, to Keisha Lance Bottoms, the former mayor, and her potential candidacy. And I think he's hurt people like Michael Thurmond. And so there's a space in between on the congressional side. On the governor's side. For the Senate, I think this cements and helps Jon Ossoff.
Jen?
I think that the flurry of executive orders, a lot of them have gone overlooked, like unleashing energy independence or supporting school choice, is going to make the position for Republicans much stronger than those Democrats. But how it shakes out in the primary is still, I think, way too early to tell.
But it's not that far away. I mean, it feels like a long time on the calendar, but we're already talking about it. Chris Carr's already announced, and there are others, would you say, that are going to join?
I'm certain there are.
Yeah, definitely.
And we can track it all. And we will track
we
it
will
all.
track it all.
On the Georgia Vote with you both and many others.
Thank you guys so much. We hope to have you back very soon.
Thank you.
And we are coming right back with our voice of the voter who shares why she thinks people who need help flock to one East Atlanta church, plus what she's optimistic about in our politics going forward. On Atlanta's east side, there's a church that provides a sense of refuge for those without homes. In our Voice of the Voter this week, we speak with the minister from Eastside Church in Atlanta about its role in the community and her thoughts about how politics affects it.
My name is Karina Aragon Buchanan. I am a staff person at Eastside United Methodist Church. This is our arts ministry. We'll do different themes in collaboration with just our wider worship planning. And it was leading up towards the Lent, in the church calendar, Lent and Easter, and it was surrounded the idea of you are loved.
So, I mean, this is where praise and worship takes
Absolutely.
place and where
Yes.
the sermons take place.
Yes, it is. So our worship and arts director, Troy, does a really wonderful job of collaborating the traditional, older with the new and more modern contemporaries.
Can you give us a little word to take with us?
Oh, gosh. Know that you are loved, that you are beloved. If you haven't heard that from anyone today, I hope that you receive that.
As you're outside, when you walk past the church,
For sure.
people are literally sleeping
Yes.
on the steps if they need a place to go.
Yeah.
Why do you think people feel comfortable coming here?
In very practical ways, we're seeing ways that our world is failing folks through food, through shelter, through housing insecurity, right? We have Michael Nolan, who works with In Town Cares. His office is here on our campus, and he provides things as practical as driver's license and birth certificates. We have our fridge, we have our pantry. So there's all of these resources that gravitate people towards this way. And the church is not just ours. It's not mine. It's not the pastors here or anything. It's of the people.
What most concerns you politically with the state of our nation or just even in local politics right now?
A lot. But I think that there's something that we are actively up against in terms of division and being quick to assume a lot about people and being quick to put people in boxes.
What are you most optimistic about?
Oh, as we're talking now, I actually just heard laughter outside through our windows. And I think I'm optimistic about the people who are around, the people who are in this space, those who are still yet to come. Maybe they've heard of our fridge, maybe they're wanting to come and fill it in ways. I think I'm optimistic about the ways that our mutual aid and our community care will continue to expand and continue to be light in this small corner of the world that is East Atlanta. So.
A big thanks to them, and they are always looking for donations for their fridge over at Eastside Church.
Such an important topic and great reporting, Faith, as always.
Thank you.
And thank all of you for watching us today. We appreciate it, as always.
And we hope to see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote. We'll see you then.